thought when he first said he wasn't going.
So meeting call to order.
He's gonna run.
Did you start the recording already?
I started the recording.
All right.
Yeah, he was wearing that black hat. That's the bad guy.
So roll call. Tommy Jewell,
Present.
Dan Layden,
Present.
David Montoya,
Present.
Joseph Lopez. I think he is
He's
going to be out.
excused. He
Yes.
sent an email and told us he isn't going to be here.
Chief Stewart.
Here. That's way better.
Well, I got into you, girl.
Yeah.
I just wanted to know if you would pay attention. You
Oh,
hesitated.
yeah, I'll pay attention.
Debbie Strongin. I don't see her
I'll get
on. I'll look out for her because I know she said she was going to attend.
Okay, there's Elena. Can they get your attention?
First half.
Michael
No, they
Wismer.
didn't. I was already looking at him saying.
Oh,
I know.
Helena Giatti.
You didn't call my name.
Did you say Debbie Dodge? I didn't hear you today.
Yes, Debbie Dodge.
I'm keeping it busy.
I got you though. I could see you.
Debbie's together.
Does that complete the roll call,
Yeah.
Madam Clerk? Chair will declare that there is a quorum and we are open for business. This is the July meeting of the Sheriff's Office Advisory and Review Board. As is the usual case, we're honored to have representatives of the Sheriff's Office, including the Sheriff. We certainly appreciate your presence, Sheriff Allen. We have, I think, a brief agenda, and there may be some additions. Are there additions or deletions to the current agenda? Ms. Layden.
May
Dr.
I
Layden.
speak? May I speak at some point about a letter of commendation for the deputies who saved that woman's life at the concert at Isleta Pueblo with the help of the automatic external defibrillator and the training by the Albuquerque Fire and Rescue folks. May I add that?
I think you just did.
Is this legal?
Is this legal?
Yes, I don't want
Yeah,
to.
wow.
Yes.
Taken up by the elbows. And
Well, we can approve an
Addendum to the
addition.
agenda.
Right.
But it's an addition to
It's
the
the rule master.
I know.
Any objection?
Yeah.
Without objection, it is ordered to amend the agenda to allow that discussion.
Thank you.
Any other additions or deletions to the agenda? If so, do you all approve the agenda? Having approved that agenda, but I didn't see any objection, we'll move to the consent agenda. That's item 3 on our agenda. Is there a motion with respect to the June minutes?
The minutes, I so moved that they be approved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Moved and properly seconded, discussion. I told Danette I saw something when I read the meeting minutes and now I can't find it. It was just
Okay,
yeah, but it was just a typo.
Just-
So we'll catch it at some point.
Yeah. Before I
I don't
send them
think
on Monday.
it was germane, so we're fine. Is there anything else with respect to meeting minutes? If so, do you approve the June meeting minutes?
Yes.
Any objection? If not, the June meeting minutes will stand approved and we'll move to item 4 on the agenda, public comment. Is there anybody waiting in the queue to address the SOARB, Danette?
No, everybody in the.
Anybody present? Madam Reporter, did you have a report? Cameraman, anything you wanted to say? Oh, man. Okay. Well, as I indicated, we're honored to have the sheriff and undersheriffs present with us. And without further ado, I'll recognize Sheriff Allen and give him the floor.
No, thank you so much. Great to be here. As you can see, over probably the last 4 or 5 weeks, I've had my command staff here. That way everybody gets to know everybody individually and know what a great job they do, but all the work we have and more to come. So I know I see on here an update. One of the biggest things is, of course, our camera system that you all know of Axon, but it goes so much further as long as the software. I've always said before, as we move forward, we want to make sure that we have the software to move forward with our platform. I told everybody to fill in the shortages that you have with any type of people power. You have to fill that with technology, but at the same time, technology is where it's at. These organized crime whether syndicates or criminals that we deal with are organized, so why can't we do that also and funnel them into something that's basic? So as we move forward with Axon, I think the community would be very happy with what we're doing, and also to make sure that we're being very cognizant and aware of taxpayers' money. One thing I will clear up is that when we switched over to Axon, which is in the process now, and as we're switching over into October and November, is the contract that we had with utility. It did not cost any taxpayer money. We had to take a risk because we knew that we did not want to pay $500,000 for a service that was not being provided, thus the taxpayer footing those bills. So that is not the case at all, in case there's any confusion. They just switched over the contract. We had a deadline, took a risk and put in that letter, and we had approval through the county commission. So that's all water under the bridge. So I wanted to make sure that was very clear. As we move on, we're recruiting. We just posted something on our Facebook now. And so people need to understand that we have deputies, but we also have court security specialists that were also approved by the county commission to have a raise. We are trying to make sure that we hire to protect our courts, which is a huge responsibility for us that people forget, for a court security specialist to go ahead and come on over. We welcome everybody to either put in for us. They have to be a certified law enforcement officer in the state of New Mexico. It is a shorter academy, but I believe to have the highest service and professionalism at the courts, we need to fill those positions. So many other projects that are going on. We're going to have another business roundtable coming up, and also behavioral health. The biggest thing that people are asking me is our Central Corridor mission. And we went out there, myself and Under Sheriff Hadeno, and did surveillance and patrol ourselves and saw all the problems that are going on. This is Bernalillo County, and we are in charge of all of Bernalillo County also. But the whole point is to make sure that we assist and collaborate with the Albuquerque Police Department. We know that they're being hammered with phone calls, or not phone calls, but calls for service. And it's very difficult to do proactive policing. We see the resources that are needed as far as the unhoused, the drug addiction. There's so many other issues that we spoke with business owners and constituents and neighborhoods that surround the Central Corridor. We know that the Central Corridor, other than the drug addiction, but specifically the crime which we deal with, it branches out all over the city and the county. And we really need to hit it in the heart. You can go out there yourselves and see what's going on, but it's not just about arresting people and putting people in jail. We see all the sources in need. So we're going to make sure that we bring in our social workers and other resources. ACS have already had 2 meetings. I've already had another 1 meeting with the mayor and the chief of APD already. So making sure we collaborate and we're all on the same page. More projects will come as we see problems within Bernalillo County. We're making sure that we're getting our numbers up. We believe that will take at least another about 12 months. I feel confident by April. We have our numbers will go up. We have a lateral class of 3 starting here on Monday. And then we have class 45 with around 21 cadets. We hopefully all pass. The sheriff's office is here to make everybody successful, but it's a very rigorous program as far as our academy. We want to make sure that our deputies are well trained. I will never negate training. I will never go over quality and like quantity, but you have to be very careful with that. I want to have quality over quantity. And then we are already starting to recruit for class 46. So hopefully our numbers will go up, and from there, people will also have a career path and also add to units such as the organized retail crime and the auto theft unit. You haven't seen a lot about them on the media. I'm doing that on purpose. We're doing a lot of stuff dealing with some serious people who are breaking the law. And I don't want to put any of their missions in jeopardy. But eventually, every now and then, you'll see a video come out on our social media so people are aware of what we're doing. We're transparent with it, but I don't want to put any of that, of those missions in jeopardy. Other than that, I can take questions, other updates that we have. The biggest thing, the air unit. We met with some air unit personnel this week. Hopefully by the end of the summer, most likely in the fall, we will be able to go back up with Metro 1. We're waiting for Under Sheriff Hadeno to approve some of the procedures and policies that we're changing. Our pilot also had to be trained. We also posted another pilot spot. We want to make sure that this program grows with more than 1 pilot, but that we have 2 pilots. And then also from there, that we're having someone else that is interested, such as a TFO, Tactical Flight Officer, if they're interested in flying, that we're building from within. So this program is always sustainable, even after the honor and privilege I have for serving for 4 or 8 years. We want to make sure that's a very robust program. The difference will be that we'll be doing 60% patrol and 40% search and rescue. A lot of people have concern on the search and rescue that we've been doing before. What will we not be providing? It's all about collaboration, and specifically in state statute, as New Mexico State Police is responsible for search and rescue, so we need to involve them. Once we replace our second helicopter, then we can start to proceed. But we want to go slowly, and I also want to do it with the respect of the family. We have the anniversary coming up this Sunday. It's very emotional for everybody. I wanted to also make sure we did something after, because there's a lot of open wounds still. There always will be. You never really heal us about dealing with it, but make sure we're doing it appropriately and most of all professionally. Drone program is growing. I think we have in about another couple of weeks, our open space units will have the drone. So that'll be expanding over the next process over about 6 or 7 months. That is, our people have been trained to be drone instructors and pilots, but that also comes with the Axon platform for transparency and also for evidence. We want to make sure that once Axon goes up, all of the drone footage goes into evidence.com and it's grouped with a case. That way, I know, like I said, I read a lot of comments. We're not spying on people, but we know things are iterable, cases that are needed from the DA's office. That all needs to go and stored properly amongst the laws in the state of New Mexico to make sure that we process cases correctly, and also comes with drone footage. So we want to stay up to date on the process of evidence and make sure that we're not violating civil rights and thus other evidence technology and policy and procedure. From there, I will take any questions that you have for me.
I don't have a question. I have a comment. Under Sheriff Williamson was here at the time. We commended Under Sheriff Quorum for his rescue with others, and they were all named in all the letters. We commended them for the rescue in January from the mountain. So we do this.
Yes. No, thank you so much. So I think the whole community, I just won't say families, everything that Under Sheriff Quorum did and the other 3 that lost their lives, just to service the community, the love that they had for it. That's something else as we built the foundation that they set for us, and we're even advanced. As we move on, we want to make sure we do it correctly. Those are something that those gentlemen loved, and we want to make sure that we honor them the correct way. So thank you so much.
How's the retail crime initiative going?
Just spoke to actually a neighbor last night. It's going very well. Like I said, they're doing well. There's a lot of operations we're doing. I don't want to jeopardize what's going on. We know for a fact that the laws that were passed that started on July 1st with the aggregate that you all know about will start putting a dent into it because now people are going to be being held accountable. Businesses are happy that we're going out there. Now it's building up, not just on their success, but expanding the unit, because there is I have numerous calls daily on how can we help. I'm running out of people, so I want to make sure cases are making sure that they're adjudicated from beginning to end and making sure we're doing it correctly. But there's a lot of crime rings around here that also are branched out with organized retail crime as far as fentanyl is concerned. So it's a multifaceted approach as far as organized retail crime, but they're kicking butt and we're really happy. Same with the auto theft unit. People are going to be quite surprised when we start putting some stats out there. And for all of you to know, probably around the fall, we're into metrics and KPI stats, meaning we see and we have all these programs that we have announced. We want to make sure that we're transparent with how are these programs actually going and what are the results. I caution people to say crime stats, whether they're up or down, whatever way that you want to go. I want to see what happens over the warm months. I want to make sure we have enough data to compare monthly and also monthly compared to at this time last year. And we know that in October, we'll probably get a bit of a true number that aren't so skewed, and we can compare it and come up with the metrics on the improvements that we're doing. And whether they improve or not, that also tells us where we need to place, where we need to put focus on, how we can improve overall as an office. So that's pretty important.
Thank you. Before we have another, let me just mention that our vice chair is now in meeting, Debbie Strongin. I don't know if anyone else joined. But we welcome her to the meeting. But 2, if you're going to speak or ask a question, make sure that your name gets reflected in the minutes. So either allow me to recognize you as you seek to address the sheriff, or state your name. Certainly, I'm not doing this to disrupt the discussion. So stating your name is fine. But we want to make sure that Danette can capture it for me.
Okay, then I have-
Please.
I think last time you guys talked about doing some training regarding the fentanyl things. I just wondered what was going on with that.
It was completed.
Okay,
So we completed, it was a train the trainer fentanyl class put in by the DEA. We sent every single school resource deputy that we have, including their sergeant, and our big portion of our community engagement deputies, who are field deputies that do community engagement as a side assignment. We have, if, don't quote me on the number, but I believe 12 or 13 deputies who are trained on fentanyl awareness. The reason why we wanted to start with the school resource deputies, the school support deputies, was because that way they can transfer that information when they go back to school, and they can teach the school and answer any type of question, but also so they can keep an eye and pay attention on any type of trends that they might be seeing. As we all know, fentanyl is no longer an adult drug. We have seen situations where it has gone all the way back to elementary school. So it's for them to be more aware, to be more trained, but also so they can give that information. So I remember we have the conversation about it was before they went to the training. Actually, at the time, we did not even know when the training was going to be. But because of that conversation was when we started to try to rush the DEA for them to come here. They actually came from El Paso specifically to do that training. And we have all these deputies trained up now. And the training was not for them to only get the class, but they can actually train, they can actually teach this class now. So that's why it's called a train the trainer. It's not just a train class, it was a train the trainer, so these people can be trainers and teach about it. So it was completed.
and I heard now that like fentanyl wasn't bad enough that they're mixing it with horse tranquilizer or something.
With everything that they can find.
And then is the, I can't remember the name of the Narcan, is that still
I don't, we
work
haven't
on
had
it?
any case about it
Okay,
with them combined with Narcan, but it wouldn't surprise me.
okay.
Because they're
Well,
putting it.
I think what came up was whether or not
Narcan would work.
yeah, our deputies were supplied with Narcan in encountering somebody who was suffering under fentanyl.
From fentanyl,
Uh-huh.
All the time, probably.
yeah, I mean, everybody in the department
Has.
and the office, we all have Narcans.
Yeah.
Well,
Even
you
even
can buy
officers.
it, I think, over the counter now, can't you?
Mhm.
Yeah, so we could all have Narcan if we knew how to use it to help someone, if we saw someone in distress.
Yep.
And they have programs where you can get it for free and get trained on how to,
Yeah.
it's pretty easy
Yeah.
to administer,
But
but
yeah. Okay, thanks.
I have a question. Elena Giaggi.
Thank you.
A while back, we talked about the body cams and the rules and that are prohibiting certain things. Like what we were talking about, when an officer might respond to a rape or a sexual violence case, and how much information goes out and what kind of information we can protect with confidentiality. We also knew at that time that perhaps some of the state laws were going to need to be changed to make sure that those things, has there been a process that you've moved towards to talk to legislative people about what kind of, laws we need to adjust so that we can protect victims of violence, child sexual abuse, those types of things, and how much information goes out to the general public?
Yeah, so I talk to senators all the time. We actually discussed this in reference to some of the body cam language did change that went into effect in July as far as some of the language and the verbiage that's used when you have to have your camera on and when not. But it's always it's like a living document. You always have hopefully cases that don't expose victims, but they're aware of that. And we're also making sure that through IPRA laws, I know a new case law just came out in reference to IPRA that does protect
Right.
certain things. So yes, we're always cognizant of that. As you can also see, even if we post, which is rarely of a victim such as the accommodation letter that you're trying for our deputies, making sure that we're doing the correct things and blurring victims out. on that case, to go a little further, I went further even personally to make sure the family was okay with that because they really want to commend our deputies. But it's different because we know that media resources will pick them up, and I don't want to set precedents on exposing victims. So yes, it's always rapidly evolving. I'm always giving them scenarios. I'm sure it'll come up with this next legislative session. I haven't seen anything nationally or around the state specifically in terms of exposing victims or violating HIPAA. That shouldn't be the case because the law does address it already, but it's always changing.
There's a couple of things from the chiefs of police that have done kind of a best practices around some body cam things that I think are really good. And I would love to see what those policies and procedures are around victims and that piece that you currently have in. And then we can always get senators to help support the body cam issue around protection of victims of violence. So however, we can help, we certainly
It
can.
will. I have, I'm trying to think of my schedule here. In September, I go with the major county sheriffs of America. We always discuss items such as this.
Mhm.
And actually have 4 or 3, including myself, of my command staff going to IACP. And many of you are aware of with the best practices because we do discuss that, and then the emails that go all over the nation. I think just in the next 3 to 4 months, something's going to come out nationally to where best practices have to be adjusted.
Right.
Like I said, I think that doesn't need to stay stagnant. It always has to evolve. Legislators can do whatever they need to, but it needs to be something that every session because there's going to be a case that comes up. And also, I believe in August, we have the New Mexico Sheriff's Association in Rio Doso, so we'll discuss items locally. Because now what's great is body cam's a law now, so that's not even a discussion to waste for the
Right.
next hour. We can discuss best practices. So.
Right now, well, as you change policies, procedures, and protocols for body cams, then do you do a training for all of your officers, like shortly thereafter, or how does that? get-
It's pretty much of a rigorous process. So if anyone comes, they have some type of, we even get them from these meetings and listen to public and command staff and even our deputies. The idea comes to me, or it comes to anybody of our command staff, but what people don't understand is the sheriff's office is we have an SOP review board. The subject comes up and we allow open discussion, we allow contrast, different opinions, and then we look at best practices and try to hone in on what the complaint is or what we can do better to negate the problem that we had before so we can move forward in a positive manner. That's what we're looking for. And sometimes get into 2 or 3 sessions, just not one.
Mhm.
And then eventually, after all command staff looks at it, it comes to my desk and I have one sitting now, not specific to body cams. But I look at it and probably 80% of the time I have a change that needs to be made. I just don't sign off on anything. I read through it. Things take me a while because I'm very meticulous with certain items. And then I'll send it back or it can go back to debate. And then we make sure we look at accreditation processes throughout the nation. I do as a sheriff myself. I can't speak for every person on command staff, but I'm always looking for those. And if they're even relevant to what we're doing, such as victims or domestic violence case law, domestic violence SOP, any type of SOP, I always try to look for a contrast. So, but it's also a living document. It doesn't mean just because it's an SOP, it can never change.
Right.
We pretty much look at those. I don't even want to say yearly. We look at them a lot. And I think we haven't even been through our whole standard operating procedures because we've been changing so much. It's always going.
On your standard operating procedure group committee, have you ever considered putting a civilian in there? Because I'm certain I get that there are law enforcement principles at hand, but at the same time, I think there's a lot of different ways that community might see things as opposed to law enforcement. Is that something?
It's not on the board, but specifically, and I'll use behavioral health as before I hired Diane Dosal. Myself and Diane, we went out to community members. We even put it, I believe, on our social media. Please give community input. And Diane was overwhelmed with the emails. We went out and met with people. I don't think on an SOP board, I would rather be the conduit for that because I know what command staff and law enforcement is thinking.
Right.
And I'm not saying there would be, but I want to avoid confrontation and talk that I don't have time for. I want to stay focused on one issue because those could branch out too much and another conversation goes. We go out to people and ask all the time. As far as on our SOP board, if we have one on Monday, I've thought about it, but I haven't done it yet. I don't know how productive that would be. I believe it would probably be more productive if we had more of like a roundtable discussion on, here's what we're looking at changing, what are your thoughts and your
Right.
processes? I think that conversation would go so much farther than mixing with command staff or captains on it, so I don't think we really get far. I've seen a lot of these boards around the nation and it's just turns into arguments and bad relationships, and that's not something I want to start.
But I like the idea of a roundtable.
If I might.
Stewart?
Sheriff, I've got a lot of background in policy. Under your predecessor, I tried to establish some linkage with handle that for your office and did not have much success. And one of the things I suggested was, how about if I come and just sit in? I'll be almost like a fly on the wall. Just listen to what you have to say, and then I can bring it back to the SOARB. I'm not there to influence unnecessarily. There's a possibility that I might have something to offer, but again, it's just as a member of the SOARB coming there, not as a member of the community coming there. And because of my background, you know, I feel like I might have something to offer. So, I mean, that's, as far as I'm concerned, that's still on the table if you would look.
No, yeah, so when we do SOP, it's pretty specific. I don't have a problem with it. I really don't. As you can listen and like you said, be a fly in the wall. It could be any SOP. It comes up at various times. I pick some of them to look at. There's some that I have on my desk now that I want reviewed. I don't really have a problem with that at all to come back to the SOARB. I just don't want any confrontation there. As far as if we allowed you to speak or not, I would like you to listen and then bring it back to the board. And I'll calm myself like I am here. I don't have a problem with that at all. But I am really serious on that. In terms of maybe having more of a roundtable for community, because I think that's important, because as I'm starting to see myself, specifically, I'm looking at, I'm talking city council in terms of District 6, needs are completely different in that area than on the west side. So that does concern me, and it actually arouses what I want to learn, because I know there's so many different sections, but no, I don't have any confrontation or blockage for you to do that. Okay.
Other discussion with the sheriff, other questions or comments? Dr. Layden?
Thank you. I trust you know that the New Mexico Law Enforcement Academy Board, you know, and the governor wants statewide standards. You're aware of all of this.
Yes.
We have this as an agenda item to make the board aware that this is coming, and that there's also a proposal for a database to be up in a year, July 24, to create a searchable public database showing outcomes of investigations and allegations of misconduct against police and emergency dispatchers. You know.
Yes.
Okay. Will that change the way you administer your SOP?
I don't think it will, because I think we're pretty open already. The rules and stipulations of that board, because I know they bifurcated that board in terms of certifications into law enforcement training.
Right.
I've been asked to be a part of that board. I don't know if it's going to go through yet. I don't know. I'm always willing to help. I'm busy enough, but I'm always willing to help. But I don't even know what the rules are. I think they still have to establish exactly how they're going to do the database, how people are going to share information. I wish they would start sooner or later, honestly, because we have academies going on. As far as answer your question, if it would change how we do SOP committees, no, I think that probably goes on to a larger conversation of nationally and what comes from Congress and the White House, as far as every law enforcement entity within the United States of America has to be accredited. That's a bigger and larger conversation. So something that goes on here with the board, I think that's just a very small fragment of the information that Washington, D.C. gets. I think that's a larger conversation, actually.
Anything else? The sheriff and undersheriffs, again, we are grateful for your appearance here and your comments, and above all, your openness. We really appreciate the culture that you've created between us. So I hope you'll continue to come. I know you all are very busy. If you need to leave, please feel free to do that. And we'll carry on with the other business that we have.
I have
you
one
know,
more thing.
You have something else?
Just before, if you all have to leave, I would like to discuss the meeting that we would be having either on August or September, the kind of group listening session. And since they're here and they would be involved, I just would like to get their feedback before
Okay,
they
and
go.
that's an agenda item, right?
Yeah, it is, but it's down. So if they
Any
leave,
objection to moving that? Hearing none, please go ahead.
no objection to moving it. Okay. So I'm sure, as you've heard, we were looking at doing kind of a listening session to community, to look at underserved communities, other areas that are being maybe misserved or disserved. And we agreed that having that kind of meeting may not be at a facility that's kind of county owned and going outside of that realm. And so when we looked at it, Danette found that we had this particular area that she talked about last month. And looking at August or September, it would be great if we did September, just to have the kind of time.
Yeah.
And so with that, you know, we would like to have your presence there. I don't know if we want a huge presence from the sheriff's department, but we want to make sure that people are heard and those people that you feel like behavioral health may be involved. Opening it up to community, doing a lot of advertising, and then also telling all of our senators and representatives in that area to also let their constituents know. And then putting out some media that we, you know, can all agree on about how we would like to promote, you know, kind of having an open voice and listening to what the issues are, as well as people who want to commend the officers for what they're doing and maybe how things have changed. And so if there are some available dates that you could provide that we could check and make sure that those times are available, that would be great to get that so that we can start making those contacts, set the date and time. The further off that we have it, the better we could do media, and then having, you know, the sheriff's office do media as well, and then maybe do a joint something together.
No, absolutely. We'll get, we'll just have my executive assistant Desiree get some open dates.
Okay,
Because I'll be all over the place traveling for these best practices, actually.
right.
So I'll give you some dates that we can work with. Yeah.
Okay. And
So-
Jeanette?
I'll keep in contact with her. Jan Gonzalez. So I did speak with the Multicultural Center in the South Valley, and they have an opening September 15th. They don't have one on our regular Friday that we meet the 2nd, but they do have September 15th available. They did book it for us like a placehold until we kind of get everything from 1 to 3.
When does the state fair happen? I mean, it's like, isn't it the second from the
I want to believe it's the
beginning of the second week into the,
second and third weekend. It's,
Right.
and then you have a week before balloon gets to start. So
Mhm.
it's right in the middle of September, if I remember correctly.
right, like around September 15th.
So,
7th to the 17th.
Oh, okay. Be over.
The second Friday
The 7th to the 17th of September.
Yeah.
is the state.
State
fair.
fair.
State fair.
And the second Friday,
The multicultural, they
Would
don't
be-
have anything at that time, but they do have September 15th available.
that's the 15th.
Okay,
And what day of the week is the 15th?
Friday.
Okay.
right,
September.
yeah.
So I can get with Desiree and send that out to her.
The September 15th, I mean, besides personal schedules, does that sound good, or do we want to bump it into October just because it is taking place on a Friday and it's taking place during the last weekend of the state fair? I'm open.
Well, I think pushing it into October, you have Balloon Fest. So
It's always
keeping it on the
Always
15th with
something.
an available
Yeah. Mhm.
facility, even though it is the end of the state fair, I think it would be minimal disruption. I think it's a good date if we could push for that.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's capture it as a tentative, and if they're,
I'm good.
15th.
And then find out what you're available.
you know, it strikes me that it might be appropriate before they leave, if they're leaving, to address your commendation. Do you want to? We can address, obviously it becomes written, but It's certainly nice to,
Vice Chair has her hand up.
there will be times, Sheriff, when we're not commending you. So we want to make sure that we have you here when we are.
Yeah.
Please, Dr. Layden, go ahead.
Thank you so
address
much.
that.
I saw 3 articles about this and I'll send, I'm happy to send the links to everybody. I sent the journal link, but KRQE and
Oh, okay.
what's the other one? 2 of the news websites have videos. Okay. As it happens, I went to CPR training last year with Dr. Barry Ramo. He has a workshop every year. And I saw the automatic external defibrillator.
Oh, okay.
And he's trying to encourage the community to buy those and put those in places. And they had one at the concert at Isleta. And to me, this is part of the importance of this is getting that information out. That the deputies responded correctly and immediately. The system worked. That's one of those where the system. And they had been trained. And I think it's so wonderful when a life is saved. This woman now has a pacemaker. Her age isn't given. I assume she's older. So I will draft a letter under Judge Jewell's name to go to all of the people involved in this event. I will call Jamie Fuller, the PIO, to get all their names. This is what we did when we commended under Sheriff Quorum, same process. And this is intended to be a letter for their personnel file. And this board is recognizing. So thank you.
And to add on to what Dr. Layden has just said, in a situation like that, it sometimes I've seen law enforcement where they will have the training, but rather defer and wait for emergency medical personnel or fire department to address the situation. The fact that your officers were confident enough to jump into the situation and address it right away without waiting because they're the closest to the scene is a testament to their training and their confidence in their training that they could handle that situation. And that's part of the unspoken message we'd like to communicate to them in the letter. It's a good on you from the community's perspective that these deputies know that how to do it and they're confident enough to do it when the situation arises. So.
No, thank you so much. And then from us, and the sheriffs, our deputies do great work. And like I said, every day we see things like this going on all the time. But their confidence, as you stated, in their training and the stress that we give them, we know that it's working. It's kind of like a case study that we do to make sure this works. And then in a situation that's rapidly evolving such as that. No, but thank you for the time and consideration that you're giving them because it's greatly appreciated, not from us, but from them. And it lets them know that the community is behind them because they do look for that. They do look for the support because they're out there putting their lives on the line every day and trying to go home to their family. So thank you so much.
Well, I think our vice chair had her hand up first, Debbie Dodge. Let me recognize Debbie Strongin and then Debbie Dodge.
Hi, this is Debbie Strongin, and I just wanted to find out if the sheriff's office is able to comment or give any update on the taser traffic stop incident that we've talked about previously that was under investigation, and we agreed we would keep it on the agenda, until we could get some kind of update.
Yeah, and it is on our agenda.
Right, so I'm just wondering if there is any update.
Yes, so the update is that particular case that we're talking about came to my desk on June 28th. And let me set the bar is I've heard, I wouldn't say necessarily complaints, but concern, which the community is granted and is much warranted. I will not ever rush a case for anybody. I want to make sure that we do a thorough investigation. As the sheriff, it's under my power right away. Look, I'm elected to the seat and I'm responsible to the people. And I take that very seriously. What concerns me is if anybody, and I won't name any specific names, but I have to look at negligent retention. I have to look at failure to supervise. I have to look at failure to train. If I take that person out of service, and that's always called administrative leave, It's either with pay or without pay. You're taking that person away so no other harm can be done to the community as we do a thorough investigation. And that person, whether held accountable at a later time, is available for the investigation, and whether or not I want to make sure that it's detailed. So I want to make sure that I set that precedence. The precedence that's also set is if you look in the last 3 or 4 years on what's gone around our nation as far as use of force, accountability with law enforcement, death investigations, I cannot even name on my hand anymore how many investigations that were rushed by that agency to appease public opinion, which I said I'm very sensitive to public opinion because I hold the seat. But later, 2 or 3 years down the road, when deputies are coming back and lawsuits for labor rights come back, nobody else is sitting in that seat but me, and none of you are with me. So I need to make sure that I'm responsible and held accountable by all of you, that I make the correct decision. As far as that case that we're talking about in particular, the taser incident at East Mountain, hit my desk June 28th. I am now done with that case. I have not made a complete and final decision. Hopefully by next week I will. I'm waiting for some. I always make sure that I send things to our legal department and make sure that's very thorough. And I make sure once the decision comes down that I'm being fair and it's equitable and that it's fair from beginning to end, which I rule in every case. And I want the public to also know I take a long time in these cases. I'm very sensitive to internal affairs investigations for past reasons, for things that have happened to me. I look at every piece of evidence. I look at interviews repeatedly. I just don't look at body cam. Honestly, for me, being an investigator, it's a very good piece of evidence and work, but it's not everything. So I look at everything from its entirety. And sometimes I will actually take the case, close it, and send it back to the investigators because I want something else to look into, something that I found. But the process as it goes just from internal affairs, it goes through, I'm very sensitive to where our information is, and it goes through 2 other people that are underneath me, and I very respect them on their opinion, and then we can put our heads together and come up with a evaluation. And then whether it's set for admin leave, whether it's set for suspension, all the way up to termination, I take that very seriously, but I want everybody to know and the public that I do a very thorough job on it. I'm sensitive to it, and I do not like to be rushed because these things are very sensitive, and these items can come up again 2 years down the line. I want to make sure that my opinion is solid, both in legal format and also with our standard operating procedure. So it was on my desk June 28th. I turned it back over to one of our IA investigators or our chief on, I want to say this past Tuesday. So I'm waiting for an opinion to come back before I make a final decision. So we're getting closer. If that answers your question.
All right, thank you. And I'm not, I hope you're not thinking that we're implying that you need to rush this. It's more just that we need to keep following up until it is appropriate to give an update on the case. And it's not any kind of criticism of the timing or trying to rush it. And actually, I appreciate how careful you're being with this. So
no, and then it wasn't to come back at you at all. I just want to make sure that the public that we serve is direct on how this goes and how I operate. And like I said, I take it very seriously that I was elected to this seat and I serve the people and need to listen to them also. And I'm their voice. But I just want to make sure that we're making the right decision. And specifically also when it comes to labor relations, it's what a lot of people don't see on the other side. And then we're sitting in a deposition or something else, making sure that we have our I's dotted and our T's crossed.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else, Vice Chair Strongin?
No, thank you.
Debbie Dodge?
Oh, just before they left, I wanted to thank them for taking care of all those puppies. And making a big deal of it because there's so much animal abuse in the community, and that was a horrible situation.
It was.
And I hope everybody's getting adopted.
And the baby shower.
Yes, the baby shower. And then one thing to keep on all of your radar, because it's something that we're looking into, again, to be transparent with SOARB in the community, is one of the issues that we're dealing with is if we find another case like this, which we know they're out there, enough shelter. I know some of the dogs are sent to Utah and other areas. It's also making sure that we're open as an office. So when we have another case, people can see it either on our social media and come and give us resources like Animal Protection Voters of New Mexico. That's important because we know there's more than that case out there, unfortunately. But I also want people to remember, I told you that these are also associated with crimes. And we had one elderly female And a lot of crimes are associated with animal cruelty, and unfortunately, there's more to come, but we're here and we're ready to take the call and do it appropriately.
Yeah, and bringing that to light because, yeah, it's well known if you do bad things to animals, you're doing bad things to
Right.
people too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Great, well, thank you all so much.
Thank you.
All right.
Take care of yourselves.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
And I think, let's see, that took care of at least one of the items. I think both items.
We have one,
Yeah.
too little on.
Yeah, I think items 6, yeah, that's just a discussion of the annual report. And our Vice Chair Strongin has definitely put forth a template. I think 20-something pages,
17.
17.
When I printed it, I think it's at 17.
I thought I saw 20-something,
Maybe so.
but at any rate,
I just
some of those are
didn't
blanks
read.
anyway, and it's a reminder that we're going to need filler. And Vice Chair Strongin, where do you want to take this discussion?
Well, I sent this out in the hopes that those who have either something they want to change of what's already in here or have, an awareness of a section that they are going to be responsible for, such as the mental health unit, which I think Debbie Dodge and Diane Layden have taken the lead on following up on that. And I guess Jim Stewart is also on that subcommittee. And so those people should be getting together to put that section together. And, so that's, it didn't work so well last year when I underlined and highlighted everything that people were expected to do. So I'm not doing that so much this year, but I did think on, let's see, I added in, I think it's on page 6, the SOARB's mission, which we have this kind of long, a 7-item list of what our mission is and whether, after 2 years of annual reports with this description, do we want to amend that at all? So if anybody's read it and has any thoughts on that.
I don't hear any Vice Chair Strongin, so we'll.
Yeah, I don't either.
Not yet.
Redouble our reading here and
Yeah.
get back to you.
Yeah. And I'm not sure, and Daniel can comment on this possibly, but I mean, can people send me comments individually without sending them on to everybody? And then if there's something, it's awkward because if one person wants to add something and then, somebody else doesn't agree with it, I can't be the sole arbiter. I'm not the sole arbiter of what gets included. So I'm not, once again, it's kind of tricky how we all work together to get this finalized. So I don't want to break, I don't want to violate the open meetings law.
This is Daniel Robertson. I think you're talking about the rolling quorum.
Yes.
It depends on how many members are going to send you comments. If it's a quorum, which I believe is 5, then we have to worry about the possible violation of the Open Meetings Act. Has there been talk of a subcommittee to kind of go, over it throughout the years? I know other people, you would just have 4 members as a subcommittee.
Well, I think it started out as a subcommittee actually, and has
Become a subcommittee of one.
But yeah, I think it is indeed a subcommittee, Daniel.
I think the idea of the subcommittee is the board would empower those 4 to make the final decisions, and it would eliminate the need for you to kind of come here and see everyone's input, whereas those 4 members would have the real final say at the end of the day. That's why I was recommending it.
And I
Yeah.
will be kind of the truth teller in this whole piece, is that the reason I think it got to where it was, where everybody was kind of commenting, is that no one was really giving Deb any kind of real input. I mean, I know Deb and I worked on a couple of things together to put that and go over it and readjust it, but there wasn't a lot until kind of like the final copy came, and then everybody wanted to comment on it. And that makes it really difficult, especially for Deb, who had how many revisions? It was like 15 or 20 or something.
Sure, we'll say it was 15, but I think it was maybe 11.
Okay. So I think if we do a subcommittee, that'd be great. But we need to ensure that the people are really gonna meet, whether it be by Zoom or something, so that we can get that, because I do think it gets really problematic where if someone didn't attend that meeting that it was discussed, then people may want to revisit that, and that made it really difficult. So I'm good with having trying to reestablish another subcommittee, and I will be a part of that.
Thank
And
you.
I think we discussed that before something went in to be a recommendation,
Mhm.
that it had to be more than just a discussion. We had to, as a group, decide that we wanted.
Well, we'll ultimately vote on what goes in the report, but Debbie Strongin, what do you want to say?
Well, as I told you, when you raised that before, Deb, the problem is that nobody reacts to anything unless they've seen it in writing. So you can, amorphously discuss any number of things, but it's got to be written down, and then people look at it and then they comment. And I don't see any other viable way to get it done. Now, the other comment I have is, while I like the idea of a subcommittee, on the other hand, a subcommittee of 4, which does not represent the majority vote of this board, shouldn't have the right to decide what's going to be in this report. I mean, I see that as a problem, even though, yes, there is the ability to write a dissenting opinion, but it's still not reflective of the majority necessarily. And so I'm concerned about that.
Yeah, and there may be other comments. Let me say this. I think the current configuration, Deb Strongin, is that subcommittee chairs are supposed to kind of be the chief presenters of their particular areas. Am I correct?
I didn't even know we had subcommittee chairs. So.
Oh, yeah, certainly we do. I think
we?
Jim is heading up SOP, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm doing the meeting thing.
The media, right?
Well, and the gathering of, the special event for,
Certainly you have your area of chairship. And so, yeah. But I think you're certainly right that it's probably not appropriate to turn over to 4 people the right to finalize the report. That's something that we all have to vote on.
Yeah.
Daniel?
But
Yes.
maybe we could structure it that those 4 people agree on what goes into a draft. And then the entire committee looks at it and actually reads it, and then, makes makes comments, and that might be a more efficient way to operate. So I'd be happy to do that, and then have a subcommittee of 4.
And this is Daniel, and I apologize. When I think I misspoke, when I meant the power of the subcommittee was to pick topics to discuss, and then every few months, the full board, well, actually every month, the board should receive a draft of whatever the subcommittee does. And if something comes out, a board member that's not on the subcommittee can always ask for an item to be removed, reevaluated, or added throughout the year. And I'm trying to be creative here too, kind of what you're doing now, Vice Chair, is I was thinking of possibly getting your draft that you email, and then if a member has some ideas or comments, they can give them to Danette, and she can provide it to the entire board as part of like the agenda packet, so it's public. And then we can discuss it at the full meeting as well.
Now, in that, Daniel, we're not obliged to give a preview of our final report publicly, are we? I mean,
You're not, no.
Okay.
You need to talk about the final vote publicly, but the
Okay.
draft's not.
all right. I don't want someone to say, well, this is the report when it is not actually the report.
The
So
final report.
I don't think we want anything out there until we say this is the report finally.
So it won't be published with the agenda, is what he's saying, is what it is I will give it to all you guys, so that won't create a rolling quorum. So if we come into this meeting today, have the agenda on there and have the copies of that, so when you're in discussion, you have it with you and you can make your stuff, and or if you have comments, you just send them to me and I make sure that they get, specifically. If
But-
you want to talk about stuff.
How does that sound to you, Deb?
Well, I'm not totally clear on how that would work, because once it's attached to the agenda, doesn't it become a public
Mhm.
record?
I thought it
And,
did.
and since we're really just in draft form and it, there might be something that's either, totally incorrect or, it raises the question, the issues.
And pardon the
Yeah.
interruption, Vice
Sure.
Chair. That's probably fine if that's the case, as long as it's marked draft, as long as everything continues to be marked draft. If it's the case that it gets attached to agenda and distributed that way, I just don't want a document coming out before we have voted on it as our final report that can be represented to be our final report. If somebody has something that needs to be discussed confidentially, it probably shouldn't be put in writing until we discuss it confidentially anyway. So I think it's fine if we have a subcommittee that's looking at draft material, and that draft material then is accumulated and distributed to the full board monthly, because I think, Vice Chair, you'll probably lay out a timetable here, and believe it or not, it'll be time for us to give this report before we know it. So we're probably talking about monthly, looking at this report that you've started to draft, and 4 people passing on it and saying, okay, we think this ought to be included. We don't think that this should be included. And then those people who have submitted those items can, from the floor at a meeting, say, well, I'd like this reconsidered, with the board ultimately having the authority to determine what should be considered.
Okay.
And so I'm trying to lay out the process. Are we on the same page on it?
I think so.
Okay.
Are we at the stage to talk about who wants to be on this subcommittee? I know Elena has volunteered, and Elena was very helpful in preparing the last draft, the last annual report. So but I'm happy to work with whoever wants to be one of the 4 people on this subcommittee.
I'll volunteer because our subcommittee was disbanded with the arrival of Diane Dosell.
Mm.
So I'll volunteer to serve.
Wait,
and I have
wait,
nine-
which committee was disbanded?
The subcommittee for the annual report? Is that what have I misunderstood?
No, you haven't.
No, she said that since Diane's taking over the behavioral health, that we could still get with Diane and make a report on it.
Okay,
Yeah,
well, we need to report on
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Okay.
We definitely need to report on that, and I thought that subcommittee was Debbie Dodge, Diane Layden, and Jim Stewart.
It is, but
Am I wrong?
Diane Dosell is now a full-time employee of the county and
Yeah,
has taken over. But now we
I know
can
that.
write that up for you.
So let me just make sure
Yeah.
that we're all clear. We're talking about there being a subcommittee, so that the full responsibility of the report doesn't rest just with our vice chair. It is
Right.
probably important that our chair and vice chair be a part of that committee. And so I will be on that committee.
Okay.
So that's 4 people. That's chair, vice chair, Elena, Giachi,
Yeah.
and Dr. Layden.
Right.
All right, any objection?
When do you get?
All right, that's our subcommittee for purposes of the annual report.
Okay.
Okay, so let me just, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say two specific topics. So I believe that the behavioral health subcommittee had asked the sheriff's office to give an update on the status of the behavioral health division in August. So I would think that after the next meeting would be possibly an appropriate time for that subcommittee to come up with whatever should be inserted into the annual report as far as what the sheriff has done to change and upgrade the behavioral health service provided through the sheriff's office. I think David Montoya was in charge of the creation of the specialized units, like I guess there's a retail theft special unit and auto theft, and I don't know what other ones, but so, if David, if you agree that you're on that subcommittee, would you be willing to write up something on that?
David, are you hearing? You have your hand up, I see, but did you hear that? And do you have an reaction?
I did. And this may be an appropriate time for me to explain why that probably won't be possible for me. Over the last 60 days, I have, 45 days, I have been named the interim county manager for Mota County, New Mexico. So I have been running their fire recovery efforts, trying to build new roads, building a stalled courthouse, and securing about $30 million in funding in the first 30 days to help those folks out. So as a result of that, I'm the interim county manager, but I could see the storm clouds on me on the horizon that I will probably be hired as the permanent county manager in Mota. So what that means, well, I don't know.
We think.
This board is about as close as I ever wanted to get back into government. But the folks out in Mota County, as they recover from the fire and the floods, have really required my help and my presence. So my plan is that if they do pressure me into being the real county manager, I'll probably have to wind up moving up to Santa Fe or to Mota, which will probably jurisdictionally take me out of this committee. So I don't want to commit myself any more than that. My days are 5:30 in the morning, and I usually roll back home into probably about 8:30 or 9 o'clock every day. So just to give you guys a heads up that that's what's been going on. They need my help. I mean, they have an annual operating budget of about $2 million a year, and we're about ready to get 50 to 100 million in federal aid and state aid. So I've got to build a infrastructure in order to execute those funds. So it's taken a lot of my time, and but
Well,
it's
we
probably
appreciate that and hope that we can carry on if necessary in your absence. But please give us the benefit of your accumulated wisdom in whatever form you can before you leave. Your service here is certainly appreciated. So I understand you.
Well, I understand that you don't have the time right now, so I'm happy to join that subcommittee with you and just consult with you, and I can write up whatever needs to be done.
And I don't know if Mr. Wisner's hand is timely with respect to this, but let's hear him as well.
Thank you. This is Michael Wismer. Having jumped into a position like that, similarly, Debbie Dodge knows. So I know exactly what you're going through. So I would like to step up to the plate and take over for you if you would communicate with me and I'll take over what you were formulating and finalize it for the board and for the vice chair. And I also have one more question for the vice chair. We, in the beginning of this year, we talked about one of the things we were looking at that I was supposed to be looking into was crime statistics. And the issue has pretty much gone away because of the sheriff's transparency and everything that he has done. Do you need a summary of his efforts?
Yeah,
we
that would be
close that
great.
issue?
And yes, I would like that. And I think I have you down on the subcommittee. I think you're the sole member of that subcommittee. And so that would be great. I have follow-up on BCSO website display of crime statistics is already in there, and that's under your name. So if you would do both of those things, Michael, that would be extremely
Great.
helpful.
Thank you.
Can I speak?
Dr. Layden.
Michael, you might want to get in touch with Holly Anderson. She might give you the whole.
What?
Holly, Hollie.
She's still, is she?
Major Holly.
Major Holly
Yeah.
Anderson with
Okay.
an O-N. And I think it's just Anderson.
I thought her first name was Major.
You might be right.
I got you.
Okay,
She's quality control, so.
don't give him too many names.
Right. No more names.
No more names.
Debbie Strongin, did we cut you off? Is there anything else that you need to say with
Not-
respect to?
To the report in general, yeah, I mean, I've listed, that's on page 10 under subcommittees, who I think is on the different subcommittees, and I'll change it based on what we've just discussed to add Michael to the specialized units. But, we have review of SOP, which is me, but even more so, it's Jim Stewart. And public outreach, we can figure out amongst us who does that of the people listed there. And you can go down all this and see what topic you're responsible for. We have orientation for new SOARB members. I know that was in process as of the last annual report. I don't know if any progress has been made on that, and so forth. So just assume if your name is next to a subcommittee here, that that whoever on that subcommittee wants to do it, or as collectively, that's the topic that needs to be addressed.
Yeah, and it may very well be part and parcel of the discussion that we're having here. Well, because of the changes, there's really not much to report in that area anymore.
Right.
But that is certainly a good way to have a laundry list to dispose of those items that we've deemed important enough to form subcommittees on previously. So we thank you for that, Madam Vice Chair.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very important if there has been a change, so that, some topic we've been looking into or making suggestions in the past has been addressed in a way that we think is satisfactory. I think it's important to note that in the report.
Okay. And as always, our public relations director here, Esteban, have I overstated I apologize. I didn't mean to promote you. It may call for a raise. But and I know that you answered an email saying,
Yes.
well, we haven't done a whole lot in public relations, but we always appreciate your input. And if it's a matter of stating a plan, again, we've not had a whole lot of public commentary and participation. So we always, that's the reason for our creation. But as we sit here, we say, man, what a different atmosphere. Here we are with the sheriff coming and being open to going out in the community with us. So things are good, and I'm not complaining, but we definitely need the public input. So.
And that may grow exponentially on September 15th.
Yeah. Deb, something else?
I really haven't done anything with the public outreach since way, way long ago when we first started this board, so I would take my name off of that.
Okay,
And that's fine. I think
Yeah.
what we've.
Fine.
Our policy has become that the chair is the spokesperson for this board in terms of public, and Esteban does a great job of keeping me abreast of opportunities to address the public in that manner, so.
So I was, speaking of public outreach, I mean, I know we're doing this thing on September 15th, but perhaps having some smaller venues or maybe even larger venues, having all of the board do a, you know, kind of a public outreach with your support and the sheriff and just saying, you know, we have these meetings every month. You're welcome to come and, you know, speak at any of them, and just keep on opening that door so that people will know and what we're doing. Because, you know, when you look at it on the webpage, it doesn't necessarily, it's not like it doesn't give you that ability, but it, you know, maybe a reminder or something that we can have Judge Jewel do, or something that we could all stand there and say we would love for public, you know, input at any of these meetings, and our agenda is posted. But if there's something you want us to consider, because you do an excellent job and get that out, so I think we should use you more.
I think we should see more of Judge Jewel on TV.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
See
how
his face.
snaz like and everything.
he's right there.
Okay, all right.
We can do something, and fortunately,
Always
we
right
are
there.
we're blessed with the presence here of KOAT, who's actually doing the story on the SOARB today.
Oh, wow.
So
See?
Judge
There we
Jewel
go.
will likely be appearing on television today to repeat this message, to invite public comment, public participation.
Then my mission is complete.
Certainly with the September event, if we do it remotely, we will do some
Yeah.
media relations around that.
Exactly.
And we could do a reminder email, just to say, to remind people of our existence going forward. And again, it's just good fortune that we actually have a television station here today who's going to be sharing that very message.
Because they're a
Appreciate
good
that.
station, and that's why they're getting all of this information, because it really does matter when something goes out and people feel invited into kind of, you know, our collaborative home.
Well, very good.
Great.
Okay.
Have we neglected anything on the agenda? Are there any
so.
committee reports? Hearing nothing, I'll move to item 9. It appears that our next scheduled meeting is August 11, 2023.
I will not be here for that. I'm not gonna come in remote from Kenya.
No?
No.
Gosh. Oh, come on. Oh, gosh. Coming to you from
What kind of dedication?
Kilimanjaro.
Unless I have a really good sighting, you know.
Yeah.
I'll get on there and show you.
Yeah, I know, we're like, oh,
Look.
Otherwise, does anybody else anticipate not being able to make it? Will we be able to fill the quorum? Hopefully. So. All right, I think we'll be all right then. We'll leave that meeting scheduled as is August 11, 2023, presumably here and 1 o'clock. Now, the meeting that we anticipate for September 15th, are we intending that replace the monthly meeting?
I don't know. Is that what we want to do?
I think so.
Okay.
So we'll anticipate then that our September meeting will be off-site, presumably at the South Valley Multicultural Center. The time may need some alteration, huh?
1 to 3 days.
1 to 3? Oh, okay. Any further business to come before the SOARB?
Nope.
If not, the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn. Second.
Moved and properly seconded. Those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Jim?
Aye.
Now
You're
that
just
we're
saying
no
aye?
longer being recorded.
Oh, okay.
And Elena second.
Until
Okay.
we officially adjourn.
We're officially adjourned, okay.
Yay.
Judge, last month I attended the Texas Chief Deputies Association